Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. Today we are going to conclude the coverage of this World Championship stage. For me, only one game is left, and after the win in the last three-player game, it is now clear that I will be able to win this group and move on to the upper bracket of the next stage. It is also clear now that Amai, unfortunately, will be the player who gets eliminated with being in the last place. The only thing that is unclear is which player finishes second, which might have some consequences on which seeding basket the Rodriguez and Ching Ching will end up on in the next stage in the lower bracket. And also, I still have some motivation to win this game. Of course, I generally want to win games and maybe gain points for the click rating, but also for me, I could maybe make sure to be in the top seeding basket, maybe avoid some other strong players potentially. So also for me, a win could still be quite important. And yeah, now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the last game of this World Championship stage. I'm playing in the first position in this game, and first of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we have a bit of theater synergy, or there is actually quite some theater synergy. We have Marlene Dietrich, Chaplin, and the Hollywood in H3, as well as the internet. And there is Bach and Antoni Gaudi in H2, but no Shakespeare, so this game could potentially become quite culture heavy. We also have some lab leaders with Sid Meier and Bill Gates, but there's no Spaceflight, no Manhattan Project, there's also no Red Cross, there's no Gandhi. In H2 we have the Suez Canal but no James Cook, we have Ocean Liner Service but no Maria Theresa, generally some strong H2 wonders, so maybe having some iron production could be quite strong. We then have Nobel as a solid leader, Darwin as another leader to produce a lot of culture with, and then Robespierre and Napoleon as a military action leaders. Shishka is the only military action leader in H1. Genghis Khan and Barbarossa can help with the strength. Barbarossa and Columbus maybe could help to set up for the Suez Canal. There's Leonardo but no Gutenberg. We have St. Peter's Basilica but no Forbidden City in H1. We have the Medici Castle but no Great Wall. Silk Road but no Universitas. And then there's the Machu Picchu. I'm playing in first position, and as you can see, I go for an interesting pick here. Because I could just take the pyramids, but I think in this position that maybe doesn't work out as well. It could still be a fine pick, but the thing is that then the Rodriguez could take Confucius, and then only Alex would be available for me for one civil action, and it could still be fine playing pyramids and Alex. Maybe I could get lucky and get Saladin as an early replacement or something. But it wouldn't be that ideal, and now that I take Sun Tzu, I'm still guaranteed to either get pyramids or Rome roads. I maybe would prefer pyramids, but a Rome roads would also be completely solid to get, and with playing in first position, I can maybe put a bit of pressure on the Rodriguez. There's Shishka, Barbarossa, Columbus in the game, the Suez Canal, so there is are some potential payoff cards for Sun Tzu, and the problem for the Rodriguez is that his pick that probably would be the strongest for him would be Pyramids plus a yellow card, but if he goes for the Pyramids, then Confucius will actually end up on a discard spot on my turn. So if he goes for the Pyramids, it will mean that he misses out on Confucius, then maybe he will end up having Pyramids and Alex, and I mean he will have the rich land together with the Pyramids, and then that should be fine. There's also a chance that he maybe still gets a leader for one civil action, potentially out of the ones that are still in the deck. But yeah, with all of those things, I at the end was actually fine with going for Sun Tzu here and rather preferred Sun Tzu plus Roman roads against maybe Pyramids and Alex instead of having Pyramids and Alex against Confucius plus Roman roads. The Rodriguez will go for the Pyramids, takes the right copy of Richland to maybe make it as likely as possible that one of the other leaders could be available for one civil action for him. And there is actually Boudica, one of the first cards to be revealed, or actually the first card to be revealed, making it that if I should end up taking the Rome roads, I will give Boudica for one civil action for the Rodriguez. But at least I'm playing Sun Tzu, so Boudica maybe helps the Rodriguez to defend against the potential military push, but also forces him to invest into the military maybe a bit earlier than he would like to. I elect Sun Tzu, I build a mine, increase my population, and then maybe there could be an idea of letting Boudica stay in two civil actions and with taking the urban growth, maybe going for library at the next turn. The problem is then that the Rodriguez could just go for Alex, and then library stays in two civil actions for me, and at the end I think it's just best to take the Rome roads, as it is quite a solid wonder, and accept that Boudica drops down to 1. I have Sun Tzu, so I think it can be fine for drodriguez to go for Boudica in this situation because he's the pyramids to invest into, and maybe delaying the second lab by a little bit isn't too bad. And so he actually also ends up going for Boudica, which I think is a fine choice. Alex maybe also could have been fine, but it's also fine to go for Boudica here. I sadly haven't drawn an event, so I can't start pushing the event tech, but I have already a tactic to work with, also a tactic that potentially could work quite well with the Jan Žižka. When I took a look at the replay, I was actually quite surprised to see my move, and I also don't remember my concrete reasoning for it. I mean, generally, of course, in alchemy is fine to take for 2 civil actions. The problem is with there being 2 copies, I am guaranteed to get one at the next turn, and I will now with the last 2 civil action build 2 steps of the Rome roads. And maybe I should have just taken the irrigation instead and then the alchemy for 1. Of course, there's an argument that maybe the alchemy is the one thing that I want to have for now, and apart from that I want just concentrate on the Rome roads, and maybe having to spend another civil action to take an alchemy at the next turn. There are some scenarios where that could actually end up being annoying, but my suspicion is that when I played this move, I played it very quickly. Maybe I was a bit in a 3 or 4 player mindset and just took the alchemy. I don't know, I don't remember it exactly. Maybe I had a concrete plan for the next turn and knew that I don't have the civil action left to pick up the alchemy for civil action cheaper at the next turn, and it is also not too bad, but probably I should just go for the irrigation here. It's an important technology to have in a 2-player game, and then go for the alchemy for 1 civil action at the next turn. So I was a bit surprised when I saw this move, and I could imagine that I just played this turn a bit too quickly, but I don't remember it exactly. I keep the tactic in the colonization card, draw some new colonization cards, and new phalanx tactic, and now also 2 events that I can push. drodriguez starts pushing, gets the development of religion, takes the second copy of alchemy, takes this copy of irrigation for 1 civil action, increases his population, builds a warrior, and then builds the first step of the pyramids. Now it's my turn. It's the question, which card do I rather want to see, the call to arms or the inhabited territory? Of course I could also use the inhabited territory for Columbus, but my hand space for military cards is limited, and I can't keep that many in hands, and then I think it would be a bit awkward to now keep the inhabited territory in hand for multiple turns, and electing Columbus already now I think also wouldn't be that ideal. So at the end I rather wanted to leave myself open for Jan Žižka, and with that of course it could get an option to cede the inhabited territory. But with not being able to keep that many cards in hand, I maybe also can't keep that many defense cards in hand. And I have the tactic already, and at the end I was just willing to cede the call to arms first. I will keep the inhabited territory actually in hand, but for now I ceded the strength event into the deck. Development of Great Roots is revealed. I will finish the Rome roads this turn. I could have potentially developed the alchemy and gone for an upgrade or something, but now that I finished the Rome roads for 2 civil actions and 2 resources, I have just enough resources at the next turn to build an alchemy directly, which is nice. I then need another civil action to increase my population, and now of course if I would have taken the irrigation for 2 civil actions at the turn before, and if I would have now wanted to have the alchemy, I would now need to spend the last civil action on the alchemy, but because of my genius move of taking the alchemy for a civil action more expensive at the turn before, I have now a civil action left that I can do, that I can use for something different, and I actually also decide to use it for something different, because with having this tactic, with being Sansu, with Žižka being in the game, also Barbarossa, I just feel like there is a potential that I could run away with this game militarily, and there is a government form, the theocracy, that I think in 2-player games can be very game deciding. I think theocracy in 2-player games should not be underestimated. I have now over the last year either accomplished myself or maybe even also being victim of some military pushes in 2-player games with the help of theocracy, because all of those benefits are just incredibly useful, and you can easily switch into just more urban buildings and use the happy face for that if you don't want to continue with going from the military. So I was actually willing to go for the theocracy here, because if I get that going, and knights, and the tactic, and Žižka, then out of the sudden drodriguez has to see how he can respond to that, especially with having gone into consumption early and maybe not having the most population available. So yeah, I was willing to pick the theocracy here over some other cards, over Columbus, and also over just increasing my population or developing the alchemy already. I reveal the phalanx tactic, keeping the one colonization card in hand. I actually draw 2 new colonization cards and another colony, so Vlada is pushing me a little bit into a colony game. Drodriguez finishes the pyramids this turn, takes the monarchy and takes the Silk Road. Looks like a solid turn. Secures himself the second government farm of H1, and then also goes for the Silk Road, with having now 5th civil action of the pyramids. I think the Silk Road is quite a nice wonder to have. Now it's my turn, and with having that many defense cards and no other events to seed, I committed now to a colony, the inhabited territory 1. I seed, and the development of crafts are revealed. And this turn I will develop the alchemy, I will build one, I need to get out of corruption by increasing my population, and then I end up taking the breakthrough, because if I want to go for knights plus the theocracy, then despite having now some upgraded science production, I might still need a bit of help for my science. I let the knights stay on 2 civil actions for Drodriguez, and I was hoping that maybe he wouldn't take the knights, so that I, maybe if I should get some science, or that I just have the knights secured and can go for building some soon. Of course, Drodriguez knows that I have this phalanx tactic, but there's also a second copy left, and so yeah, maybe I can get those knights at the next turn. I keep the 2 colonization cards and draw a bunch of new cards, some aggressions, who could actually end up being interesting if I should manage to pull off this military push. And then the barbarians, not the ideal event, because at the moment it's looking like I might have the most culture, but at least I have something to push. Drodriguez copies my move this turn, builds an alchemy directly, builds a step of the Silk Road, and then takes the urban growth. Doesn't take the knights, and also doesn't take Jan Shishka. Of course, taking for Shishka is quite for 3 civil actions is quite expensive. But it's also a bit dangerous to leave me this Jan Shishka and the knights available with having the theocracy in hand. So yeah, but I guess he can just go for Saladin, gets the 3rd military action from the monarchy, can maybe use Saladin for strength if I go for Shishka, and I at least have to spend 2 civil actions to take him if I want to have him. So I do think it's a fine choice, probably to leave him available for me here, but Drodriguez has now 0+1 food, no free population, so at the moment he is a bit potentially in danger if I push the military. Now it's my turn, even though it's not an ideal event now that I can get the knights and Jan Shishka, which is what I will do this turn. I was willing to move the event deck forward, even though the barbarians might just be hopefully a neutral event. Hopefully I don't get punished by seeding that. The development of science is revealed, and then if I want to go for knights and Shishka, the turn is somewhat scripted, or not completely. I have to make a decision to get out of corruption if I rather would like to increase my population and build a warrior, or if I rather would like to upgrade a lab and build a warrior, and I end up upgrading this lab, getting my science production going. Which means that at the next turn I'm missing actually a resource to go for a second knight already, or for 2 knights, but I'm also missing 1 food, so I couldn't really do it anyway without disbanding something, and with that I was at the end willing to just go for this upgrade and get even more science production going. I actually had a bit of a tough choice on to decide what cards do I want to keep, because I had 2 aggressions in hand, but also 2 defense cards, and with me now having all the things that I need to maybe go for a bit of an aggressive game, maybe it could have been worthwhile to actually keep both aggressions to really make sure that I can capitalize on a strength push. On the other hand, the inhabited territory 1 is coming, which is maybe not that ideal now in the deck, and it could also be nice to keep both defense cards. So it was the question, do I just keep the defense cards, maybe hoping that I can draw yet another aggression with Sansu, or do I just keep both aggressions and maybe I'm fine with Drodriguez winning that colony? At the end I went for something in between. I wanted to make sure that I have an aggression, but I also wanted to at least have 1 defense card so that Drodriguez at least maybe doesn't win the colony for cheap, or that I maybe have a chance to still win the colony. I draw the foray, it engages in the strategic territory, so some events. My choice of this card at the end of my turn has some consequences immediately, and I considered electing Jan Shishka already. The problem is, I then lose the strength of Sansun. The tactic isn't giving me any strength yet, so I would then be in danger of getting hit by the call to arms or the barbarians, so it didn't really work out nicely also in this way. I could have upgraded the fighting band tactic, but I think that would take a lot of military potential away from my next few turns, so yeah. Anyway, Drodriguez seeds now, and there is immediately the inhabited territory revealed, you will see that I'm actually able to win it. But had I kept the other defense card, I would have been able to win this territory for only a warrior. Now I have to send 2 warriors away, which is somewhat expensive, but I just didn't want to give this colony away for too cheap for drodriguez. But now, with having to rebuild 2 warriors, it might actually take 2 more turns until I can, or actually 3 more turns to until I can get really threatening with Jan Žižka. So maybe I could also just be fine, as said, with drodriguez winning that. But at the end I was willing to bid the 2 warriors, but no, maybe I should have kept both of the defense cards, then I would have been threatening more soon. But then I would have no aggression in hand, and I didn't draw new aggression, so let's see if this aggression will still end up being useful. I have to send those 2 warriors away. drodriguez develops the monarchy. Now that I sent those warriors away, he could choose what he wants to get from Boudica. The science allows him to go for the monarchy already. He then takes the iron, the drama for Bach and Marlene, so I think that is strong to have in hand in this game. He then elects Saladin and upgrades his second lab for free with the urban growth and the Silk Road bonus. He is now even at 7 civil actions, has fully upgraded alchemy, the Silk Road, which synergizes very nicely with having that many civil actions. So economy-wise, I think his position is quite nice, meaning that if I don't manage to capitalize on maybe the strength advantage that I potentially can build up towards with Žižka, I potentially might be a little bit behind in this game. I this turn elect Jan Žižka, dropping down to 0 strength for now, but I then go for the knights, build a knight, increase my population, build a warrior so that I maybe get soon more draws in age 2. And then I have 1 civil action left, and I decided to still pick up the iron. Maybe I could also fully commit to a more military heavy game that maybe could be fine, but as we saw in the beginning, there are some strong H2 wonders, and I just think in a 2-player game you're a bit more flexible if you have upgraded mines. Even if you upgrade them a bit later, without those upgrades, something like Hollywood gets really challenging to build, and now in addition with having those strong H2 wonders, I was willing to take the iron, even though I could have maybe gone for the theocracy to apply even more pressure to maybe get an additional draw, which could be interesting, but yeah, I at the end was willing to take this iron for 1 civil action. I keep the aggression 2 events, I draw another big strength event. drodriguez seeds, the barbarians are revealed, which sadly end up doing nothing. drodriguez goes for irrigation, which I think is a good decision. I mean, he was also missing the science to go for iron, but nonetheless, I think with me going for Žižka soon, him having a bit of food income could turn out to be very relevant for him. He then takes the swordsman and those 2 yellow cards, which are extremely valuable for him with the Silk Road bonus. Interestingly, he uses Saladin's bonus for strength, which is a big indicator, I think, that he has, and another big indicator was, of course, his relatively low colony bid, but it really is now basically clear that he has no, at most 1 defense card in hand, because he would have needed 2 to defend against an aggression from me if he would have taken the civil action. So at least with my military push, I'm already costing him a civil action here. Now it's my turn. I'm not trying the aggression, of course. drodriguez can defend for certain. Instead, I push the strength event into the deck. The question is which one is best, and I actually go with the foray here because I am late with upgrading my iron. Maybe getting an additional population out could be very nice. So I do think the additional food and resources could actually give me a very important boost here and could maybe turn out to be even more important than the yellow token swing, even though that, of course, also is extremely strong to have. So it was a close choice for me. The event that is revealed is an event that was seeded by drodriguez, the only one, and that actually changes quite some stuff. Because before that was revealed, I had 4 resources, meaning I was missing 1 resource to build another warrior and another knight. However, out of the sudden, I can go for 2 phalanx tactics with Žižka, with the tactics being upgraded with Sansu already this turn, and maybe get quite a bit threatening already a bit earlier. So I was quite happy to see this event, and I do think the new deposits are extremely helpful for me here. I increase my population. That gives me now exactly enough population to go for a knight. Then the question is, of course, do I want to build a warrior or do I want to build a farm, which also gives me the second tactic with Jan Žižka. At the end, I went with the farm. At least that will mean that in 2 turns I already get another population out. And I also felt like if I of course build this warrior, I have an additional civil action, but I didn't really find a nice way to use this additional civil action. One thing that I could consider, no, I shouldn't really consider that, but there is Code of Laws, Justice System, but I should be able to get one of those. If only the Code of Laws would be in the row, then I might consider going for the Code of Laws to invest my science, to not be stuck in 4 civil actions, denying that from drodriguez. And there is maybe a small chance that drodriguez just takes both of those tags away, but it would be expensive for him. I think would be fine with that outcome. So I'm not willing to take the selective breeding for 3. There's still the irrigation coming down the road. There's an ocean liner service in the game, so I don't really want to take some of those cards. I also don't necessarily want to take some of those cards for 2 civil actions. My colony is already out, the cartography I don't really want to have, and at the end, I just felt like I can't really use the civil action nicely that I would gain from just building a warrior, and with that I just built the farm, and it gives me, with the last 2 civil actions, the possibility to go for the theocracy, which is of course a bit of a commitment. Maybe I could have still waited for an H2 government farm, but I think with me going for the strength push, it's just extremely important that I maximize my amount of draws. And getting the 1 additional draw could potentially be very important. Also, the 1 additional strength from the theocracy could maybe make a difference on whether drodriguez can defend or not. It boosts my culture production a little bit. I'm now starting to run away with a little bit with the culture, so I was willing to commit to the theocracy, which is now helping me to really apply some pressure on my opponent. And then with my last civil action, I will just develop the iron so that I can maybe soon start going for some upgrades. As I can't really increase my population, I need something to upgrade in order to get out of corruption. And I'm not totally certain if the card that is on the right is actually the card that I drew the last. I think it probably is the case, so if that is the case, then the 1 additional draw from the theocracy has just given me this H2 raid, which has the potential to do a lot more damage than the H1 raid that I have in hand. drodriguez goes for swordsman, increases his population. That population is unhappy, so he can't just build another swordsman, but what he can do, thanks to his many civil actions, is to take the organized religion, develop it, upgrade 1, and then build a swordsman and reveal the legion tactic. So now he's at 8 strength. He could even go up to 9. But instead he decides to take the civil action from Saladin. It's of course a tough choice. We saw earlier that it looks like he doesn't have a lot of defense cards in hand. If he maybe would have gone for an upgrade and taken a strength from Saladin, then he would have needed 2 cards still. But probably I would have still tried an aggression. I mean, I might have been tempted by putting the uncertain borders into the next event deck. But with having seen that drodriguez doesn't have that many, at least some turns ago, I might have still tried an aggression, and then at the end drodriguez might have just lost the resource and might have lost the civil action from Saladin. Maybe he could still take the strength not upgrade, hoping that he draws an H2 card, at least giving him a chance to defend, but at the end he just decides to take the civil action here. That, however, means that it's now quite likely for an aggression for me to be successful. It might have been anyway, but now it's even more likely, and with that I was I was also very happy to have drawn that raid, and I was playing that, and I think that is now an extremely big swing, especially because drodriguez has actually just invested into an H2 building very early with the organized religion, so I can now destroy his organized religion and the alchemy, gaining 7 resources myself, which is more than double my current production. So I do think that's an extremely big swing here, and with that alone I think my military push has already somewhat worked out, because that is just some extremely big swing. 7 resources for myself. If drodriguez should decide to rebuild those at some point, then those are 13 resources and 2 civil actions lost for him, and he can't rebuild those immediately, so until the point he rebuilds them, he also loses the production of those buildings. So yeah, that I think is now really shifting the balance of the game in my favor. I now can use the resource to go for some iron upgrades. I also really want to have one of those techs, either Code of Laws or Justice System, and I am willing to take the Justice System here for the 1 additional science to get the additional blue tokens. And then I also take the irrigation. There's of course the selective breeding, but I am a fine yellow bank. I have already committed to 3 farms, so just upgrading all of them to irrigation could be fine. There's also an ocean liner service that I might still be getting, and if I take the selective breeding, then I either have corruption or I need to miss out on those, so I think it's just too expensive to spend the additional civil action on the selective breeding here. I get 2 more draws. I was of course interested if I might get even another aggressive cards here. And I do actually get the infiltrate, which of course also is an aggression that can do quite some damage. Drodriguez this turn goes for Anthony Gaudi, interestingly. There would have been Bach with the drama, so it's interesting that he goes for Gaudi. Maybe he wants to deny the culture leader from me. Maybe denial reasons are an aspect here. Could have also gone for Napoleon to maybe be a bit more safe, but maybe he was afraid that then I might just go for Gaudi and run away with the game. So he goes for Gaudi himself, interestingly. And then he takes the engineering genius, increases his population, builds some steps of the Silk Road, again takes the civil action from Saladin, which again also leaves him a bit vulnerable to potential aggressions. Drodriguez has now already invested into 3 steps of the Silk Road, so it might actually be quite tempting to remove that Silk Road with the infiltrate, and it might be fine. But I actually decided to keep that infiltrate in hand for a little bit longer to potentially maybe get even some bigger value out of it. In case Drodriguez will end up going for Gaudi, I can maybe eliminate his H2 leader, or maybe he will actually go for an H2 wonder. I'm not sure if it is the correct choice. Maybe I should just try blowing off the Silk Road here, but I at the end decided to go for this H1 raid now and keep the infiltrate in hand. And the H1 raid is still also doing quite some damage. If that should go through, it would cost Drodriguez his last lab. It also gives me more draws. The aggression is indeed successful, and yeah, now it's looking quite grim for Drodriguez, having lost another lab, another 3 resources going my way. And yeah, this turn I thought about 2 directions that I could take in this game. I saw the strategy and I felt like instead of developing the justice system, maybe I could just take the strategy, develop it, increase my population, build another unit maybe, and really completely commit into the military route. And there's certainly the chance that it might just be successful. There's no Gandhi in the game, and Drodriguez at the moment could really struggle to defend himself. I have already 1 more aggression in hand, I will get more draws. But I also would be stuck on 4 civil actions for another turn, and I would somewhat be dependent on the draws. And I felt like I have now already gotten enough out of those aggressions, and I still am in a threatening position, that I can maybe shift towards a bit more of balanced or more peaceful game that I then can maybe win without being too reliant on any draws. Maybe if I go for military push, there is a chance that Drodriguez will just somehow find a way to run away. I think at this point both ways have good chances to just win at the end, and maybe it would be fun to commit or to go all in on the military push, but instead I ended up going for the justice system, taking the ocean liner, securing myself a very big population income for the rest of the game, and then I increase my population to get out of corruption. I get 3 draws going. I actually draw a war. So Vlada is still blessing me with some military options. Drodriguez this turn finishes the Silk Road, starts going for the iron, which does put him quite low in science, which could be a limiting factor, but he still wants to get the production going. Takes a bunch of cards, as one of them being the strategy, which I think he definitely has to deny from me. But he leaves me the rifleman, and I will use them this turn in order to go for this war, which I think again does some damage to Drodriguez, forces his actions, he can't really rebuild his economy, and it will also cost me a little bit of my economy because I will now delay the ocean liner, but I do think it should end up being worth it. I take the rifleman, I develop them, build 1, increase my population, build another 1, going up to 20 strength, and then I will go for another mine upgrade as well as building 1 step of the ocean liner to just play my civil actions as effectively as possible. Now it's Drodriguez's turn. He rebuilds that temple that I got destroyed by the raid with the growth with the Silk Road bonus. Still quite costly. He plays the Wave of Nationalism, and that actually allows him to go for 3 more swordsmen, putting himself at 14, and with the Saladin bonus, potentially at 16 strength. He takes the Harvard College, the reserves. With those 2 yellow cards, he should be able to finish the Harvard College somewhat quickly, which might give him a door back into the game by just getting some science production back, so that could I think be a good choice here to go for the Harvard College. He takes the strength of Saladin to make it that he only loses 1 yellow token. He would now need only 1 defense card to defend, and with that I could still try it. maybe he doesn't have one, but instead I decided now to push the uncertain borders into the next event deck, and I will actually go for a turn where maybe the next turn I have some better chances again to go for an infiltrate and also do more damage with it, because now I would just remove the Harvard College, which he didn't invest at least any steps into. He could just finish the Harvard College, but at least then he also should have elected Anthony Gaudi by now, then I could remove Anthony Gaudi, but there's also a chance, because the event that I will reveal now is the Call to Arms, which will make it that if drodriguez wants to finish the Harvard College, it would cost all of his civil actions, and maybe there's some other stuff that he still wants to do. So I felt like maybe there's a chance that he doesn't finish the Harvard College yet. Maybe he even starts building some stages, and so I felt like maybe there's a chance for quite an impactful infiltrate at the next turn, and I wanted to have that chance, meaning that I was willing to invest a little bit more into the military. I finished the ocean liner, increased my population, built a warrior with the military action of Jan Žižka. I then switched to Nobel. I have now the 2 tactics normally. I don't need Žižka's help for that any longer, meaning electing Nobel actually boosts my strength now up to 23. And drodriguez will soon lose 2 strength if he loses Saladin. So, no, if he doesn't increase his strength even further, he might need 2 defense cards to defend at his next turn, which maybe makes it then again somewhat likely that I can actually get this infiltrate off. I have 1 civil action left. I'm not sure if I'm doing the correct choice here. I will end up taking the breakthrough, meaning that the irrigation might just be lost, but it is also not that unlikely that maybe drodriguez doesn't take any card from the row, so there might be another H2 turn. Then again, I also might just take the team sports, because I don't have Happy Face solution yet, but there's the organized religion still coming, the opera, which I might be able to use. I hopefully will get another yellow token from the uncertain borders at some point. Yeah, Marlene Dietrich and Chaplin in the game. At the end, I just went for the breakthrough, which is still a very effective card to get for 1 civil action. I maybe want to get into an H3 government form, but either taking team sports or developing irrigation might have been also a good call. But I have those 3 farms, so even if I lose the irrigation, I'm still quite some time fine what the phenomenon belongs. I draw 3 cards here, another defense card, a tactic, and a politics of strength. drodriguez goes for Anthony Gaudi this turn. I was interested to see if he just finishes the Harvard College, but he doesn't. He goes for a mine upgrade, wants to have the cavalryman, so that's the reason why he isn't just finishing the Harvard College. If the Call to Arms wouldn't have been revealed, he might have just finished the Harvard College and taken the cavalryman, but now he needs to delay it. But that means that now he has invested a step into the Harvard College, and I was decided to give it a shot now to go for this infiltrate. drodriguez would need 2 defense cards. Could of course also remove Anthony Gaudi, but with having destroyed all of those urban buildings, he isn't doing that much at the moment. And I think the Harvard College, if I destroy this, then drodriguez again is stuck on a lower amount of science. So I do think that could really do some damage to him here. So I was interested to see if the aggression will end up being successful. And it is actually successful, so drodriguez having quite a rough game, getting hit by many aggressions now. And yeah, I will destroy the Harvard College, scoring 6 culture for myself. I increase my population once normally, once with the ocean liner this turn. And then I will just take a bunch of cards. I will develop the irrigation, the age hasn't ended, so now I decided to spend a civil action. I then take the organized religion, the opera, and I actually developed the opera already. I could potentially take something like efficient upgrade, or maybe the cavalryman for H3 tactics. The problem being that, first of all, there might be a chance that drodriguez could deny the cannons from me, but maybe even more importantly, but I mean that is also somewhat important, getting the cannons to maybe activate those tactics. But another reason is that the revolutionary idea now stays in 2 civil actions, which I think is a very important card for drodriguez, which I maybe should also just consider taking myself. But it's still somewhat inefficient for me, and at the end I rather just wanted to have Happy Face solution. I wanted to have the opera, I wanted to increase my population, develop the irrigation, I wanted to do all of those things, and so at the end I was just fine with letting the revolutionary idea stay on 2 civil actions for drodriguez. I draw 1 card, which is yet another aggression, so Vlada is blessing me with some nice military stuff. H3 starts. drodriguez seeds. There's immediately another strength event revealed on certain borders, ends up being on top. Another yellow token is taken by me from drodriguez, which causes him to invest into another organized religion, costing him all of his resources. He takes the reserves, the efficient upgrade, a revolutionary idea. He couldn't defend at a turn before, meaning he needs to draw one H3 defense card to defend, and if he has no H2 defense cards, he might even need two, so I was again willing to try an aggression here. And a blunder is successful. Yeah, that is now starting to look very bad for drodriguez. I will just take 5 resources away, don't need the food for the ocean line. I mean, could I maybe... No, he can't increase his population at the next turn. I could maybe lock him down on fewer food, but he might just could maybe play reserves to increase his population. And I just don't really need the food for myself, so I just took the maximum amount of resources. And as I don't know if I will get a war over culture, I decided to just start building some operas. I can build 2 operas. And I'm not sure if I'm doing the right call here, because maybe I should just take the revolutionary idea. It would make it even more easily possible for me that I could go into an H3 government form, and it would maybe be an important denial from drodriguez. That would, however, mean that I either miss out on one of those operas, and I kind of wanted to just get the maximum culture production going now, or if I'm not willing to not build an opera, then I'm missing out on the cannons, and I have this defensive army tactic. Maybe I could draw some H3 tactics, and there's still the chance that I could also win this game by a military push. So at the end, I let the revolutionary idea stay on the row, but if that is the right call, I'm not certain, because I will now actually take cannons and efficient upgrades. I'm of course also denying the cannons from drodriguez. So that is of course another aspect, but of course he might get the rockets, which at least are more expensive. So yeah, taking the sufficient upgrade for 2 civil actions I think isn't that great. Maybe I should have just taken the revolutionary idea and either missing out on the cannons or just delaying 1 opera maybe is the solution to this at the end. I draw immediately a war. So Vlada, this stage Vlada has really blessed me with a lot of military cards to the discontent of my opponents. drodriguez seeds, the good harvest is revealed. He has now some additional food, plays the revolutionary idea with the Silk Road bonus, develops the strategy, so he at least should be a bit safer from aggressions from now on. Takes the revolutionary idea that I left for him on the row and takes the computers. What he doesn't take is this fundamentalism. I guess at this point he just needs to hope for some good things to happen anyway, but this fundamentalism is of course a nice card for me to take with having now drawn this war. I see the politics of strength, the knowledge of the ancients is revealed, and I then decided to go now with this war all in on the military front, as I should be able to declare war at the next turn. I go for the fundamentalism, I take the reserves, and I go for 2 upgrades from Warriors Driveman. Again, I'm not certain if I'm doing the right call here, because instead of the reserves, I maybe should just take Marlene Dietrich. That means that I can only build 1 cannon instead of 2. So it actually costs me 3 strength for the war, but I also would deny Marlene Dietrich from drodriguez, of course. Then he would get the reserves. At least Marlene Dietrich isn't producing any culture for him, but she is also generally just a nice leader for me with having those 2 operas, so maybe I should just go for Marlene here instead of the reserves. I mean, if I lose Nobel and cannon, it's cost me 5 strength, and I don't know how big of a difference Marlene makes for drodriguez. I guess maybe it's also fine to go for the reserves, but maybe I should also, with the Marlene generally being just a strong leader for me, just go for Marlene here. I then played a defensive army tactic already, because otherwise I don't have enough military actions to declare war and build 2 cannons. Of course, that gives drodriguez a big hint on what is coming. He will be able to prepare for it, but I thought it should be very unlikely that he will be able to beat me in strength, even if he prepares ideally. I draw 2 cards, colonization card and the impact of architecture. drodriguez seeds, opens the foray, so I get some additional food and resources. I of course didn't know whether that would be revealed. Now I could potentially build 2 cannons even with Marlene. drodriguez develops the cavalryman, builds 1, plays the reserves for resources, goes for an upgrade with the efficient upgrade, and being able to play that reserves with the Silk Road bonus and being able to upgrade his mine for completely free is important, because that gives him now exactly 10 resources for the next turn, which together with Marlene Dietrich allows him to go for a second copy of this classic army, so that Marlene Dietrich is now actually making quite a big difference for him. But even with that, he won't be able to muster enough strength to win this war, so I was thinking, dang, maybe I should have just taken Marlene here, which maybe would have been the correct call, but even with that, I still can win this war. He then takes the endowment, which I think makes sense. I will now go for the war. Increase my population, build a cannon, build another cannon, going up to 42 strength. I take the engineering, which still might save me a bit of resources. Take the urban growth, I take another urban growth, and I also take the satellites. For the leader, I'm waiting for Chaplain at this point. Now we can see how much drodriguez can defend. He increases his population. The Spencer Warrior goes up to 37. Could have gone up to 38 if he would have been willing to destroy something else, but that would have been quite costly. Instead, he takes the United Nations and the Engineering Genius. With those two Engineering Geniuses, he should be able to finish that wonder if he isn't disrupted, and he can for certain defend against an aggression. So the war isn't the biggest one, but it's still another culture swing, and I'm already ahead. So yeah, that I think now it looks very, very unlikely that drodriguez can make a comeback, even if he finishes United Nations. I see the impact of architecture. Politics of strength is revealed again as the first card. I draw the impact of science and impact of wonders, as well as another war. I could maybe set up for another war, but at this point I just wanted to start a lot of cultural production. I've seen the impact of architecture, and so I developed the engineering. I built one opera, I built another opera using the two urban growths that I took at the turn before. I will take an elect chaplain, and then I go for an upgrade with the efficient upgrade before I lose it to the end of the age. drodriguez might now just end the age potentially. I also revealed a modern army tactic for a little bit of additional strength. I draw the impact of population, which is an extremely big impact for me. drodriguez plays the endowment with the Silk Road bonus, uses the engineering genius, takes the reserves, the air forces, ends the age, and plays the revolutionary idea. And yeah, before the age ends, I have now already more than double the culture. So even though I can't go for wonder, I think that game should be decided by now. I see the impact of population. The developed territory is revealed, as I have just seen the impact of population. I'm passing on that one. drodriguez is able to win it for just a warrior. I will go for religion. I will go for an alchemy for the impact of architecture. I will also go for 2 farm upgrades, and with that I'm just preparing for a bunch of impacts, as well as taking the oil. And then it's drodriguez's turn. He seeds. Ravages of Time is revealed, which actually produces him 2 additional culture, but maybe he misses also the civil action. I'm not certain. Probably not. He probably doesn't have that much things to do. He finishes United Nations, doesn't have any impact to evaluate, disbands another unit, builds a religion, and then builds a farm. And before the final impacts, we can see that I am having a very big lead and should be able to win this game. There's the impact of architecture, giving me +5 against drodriguez, the impact of agriculture, which I prepared for by upgrading those farms, which gives me now +1 against drodriguez, the impact of happiness, which was seeded by drodriguez, which doesn't change nothing, and then there's one big impact left for me, the impact of population, giving me +26, and drodriguez +8, so a +18 impact, an extremely big impact of population. We can see what the ocean liner service does. Combined with winning Inhabited 1 and having a bit of additional food production. So yeah, at the end, quite decisive victory for me. I think in this game we have seen that an early military push and the Sun Tzu and Shishka combination definitely has to be respected in a 2-player game, but you also need to commit to it, I think, in some sense. So not necessarily, of course. You can also build up a bit of economy and then still use Shishka nicely to maybe get some efficient strength, but to really punish your opponent for maybe having a better economical setup, you really need to maximize your draws. I think something like Theocracy can just be extremely strong in such a situation. I think that one additional draw that gave me the raid already played an extremely big part in how this game developed, and yeah, so I had that, and I And drodriguez maybe could have denied Shishka, but I'm not even certain if that would be the right call. But I mean, I guess it would have prevented him from some damage potentially. So, but it's still quite expensive, and I would not necessarily give the advice to take Shishka for 3 in 2-player games with Sansu and with being low in population and with the opponent having already taken Theocracy. Maybe it could be a consideration, and maybe it would have saved him some trouble here. And then, of course, Vlada also blessed me with all the cards that I could hope for. A lot of aggressions over territory, over culture as the first draw of H3. So, I mean, I maximized my draws. It was likely that I should draw some aggressions or maybe one war in H2 or something. But still, I got a lot of those aggressions, and that then did some damage that drodriguez couldn't recover from. So, at the end, a decisive game. And yeah, and that of course also was the last game of the group stage. So we can now take a look at how the last games finished, also how the 2-player games finished, that drodriguez still needed to play against the other opponents to see how he will finish in the standings at the end. And yeah, now we are going to take a look at those standings. And as we can see, drodriguez won against Amai, who resigned, I think also partly because there was just no hope left for him to finish better than last place. And then the decisive game for the second place was the one above. Ching managed to win the 2-player game against drodriguez, so with that, he actually claims the second place, is in the same amount of points. I'm not even sure if that then makes a difference for the seeding basket, but he can call himself the second place finisher in this group, and actually this manages to overtake drodriguez in the standings with being able to win this game. And yeah, I'm of course very happy about how the stage went for me. I sadly, of course, didn't get the complete clean sheet, but in stage 3, there are already those are no bad opponents or something. I think they were in the top 200 or something of the click rating, or maybe a little bit below at least some of those. I don't remember the exact placements. So winning all of the games against players of that caliber is just not something that can really be expected. So I'm extremely happy about the amount of points that I scored, and in some games maybe I played a bit imprecise, maybe also because of my good start, let a little bit of my guard down, which mostly wasn't punished, but the one game of course I lost. So when I am facing against even stronger opposition in the future stages, then I should play a bit more carefully in some situations. Yeah, but overall I'm very happy about how the stage went. I will be continuing the upper bracket of the next stage. I hope you're already looking forward. I'm of course very excited which opponents I will meet in stage 4 upper bracket. And yeah, with that we have covered this World Championship stage. Next, I will maybe, until the stage 4 begins, I will maybe show some games of the Grandmaster division of the International Championship that I'm playing in at the moment. I definitely won't be able to cover it completely, but I maybe will show 2-3 games or something, depending on how much time I will find for it. And then also my patrons voted to see another Royal League game in April, so we will also take a look at one of my Royal League games. So that's what coming next, and then of course we are very excited to see how this World Championship will continue. Alright, with that I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.